Welcome to the Denton Vibe with Diva Girl Ellie, powered in part by Studio E and Classic of Denton.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me here on the Denton Vibe with Diva Girl Ellie on DentonRadio.com. Today, we're going to be talking to Ricky Gazelle, and we're going to be talking about Dory the cat and the adventures and misadventures of Dory. And we're going to learn who she is and learn all about you tonight. So thank you for coming. I'm so glad to have you here, and I'm so glad to be a part of this adventure in a very small way. So thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's very, very exciting to be here. It's very exciting to have launched this project. It's been a long time in the making.
Very cool. So let's start with you first. Let's talk about who Ricky is as a Dentonite, and let's hear a little bit about you so we can spread the word with all our fellow Dentonites.
Okay. Well, hello, Denton. I do physical therapy for a living, but I have many other degrees and many other interests. But what brought me to Denton was a job that was offered to me at the state school, which I love. It is my second time to work there. The first time was on a contract. Second time they invited me back full time, and I immediately accepted the position because I knew what I was getting into. And so here I am in Denton again and loving it, and I plan to stay here till I retire, and maybe thereafter. We'll have to see.
We don't want you to leave.
I don't want to leave.
You bring people here. You don't leave.
I will work on that.
It's like Hotel California, where you can check in, but you can't check out.
Got it.
No, I'm just kidding. We're not
one-way
that creepy.
highways in Denton.
We're not that creepy. We are not that creepy.
Denton is wonderful. For anybody who is considering coming here, I actually did invite a friend to consider moving here just today.
There you go. You see, we're recruiting actively to have new Dentonites, and they come in, and we keep them here.
Yeah, because they fall in love with
Yes,
the
they
town.
do. It's what's not to fall in love with here, right?
Exactly.
Definitely. So you have an interesting job, and how did all of your life and your daily routine end up leading to the path of Dory the cat? So writing in particular, tell me the story about that. How did you start out with that?
Well, I was director over several facilities across several counties, much further south from here. And I was in a meeting one day, and I noticed one of the staff members brought in this little bitty tiny kitten and was giving it a bottle, to the point that I was distracted, like, oh, that is so cute. So I went to her after, and I asked her about it, and she said the Humane Society there needed volunteers like mad because they had just had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kittens every year that they would find abandoned. And so I started fostering and never adopted any of the kittens. I had my own cats, and I became a contract traveler, started traveling to different states for my job for short periods of time. And I went in to submit my last two kittens and had explained to them, this is it. And they had this little orange 7-week-old kitten up on the counter who was very, very sick. And they asked me if I would consider fostering him because he was in such poor shape. And he really needed a human, not a cage. And so I explained to them, I'm going to be leaving in 4 weeks. What's going to happen, to this kitty? I didn't want him to become attached to me and then me have to turn him back in. But at the end of the 4 weeks, he was still very, very ill. But he was so bonded to me, and I was so bonded to him that they made an exception, let me adopt him. And he was 9 months old before he was able to actually be pronounced well. And by that time, I was so in love with him. The thing is about Dory is that I had also gone through some pretty serious personal trauma in my life that had left me really, I don't know if devastated is the right word, but I was quite sad in my life. It had been shattered. And I noticed one day that I would come to his door because he had his own bedroom and his own bathroom because I couldn't let him around the other pets or us. And he'd always have this one little gold eye under the door like this. And and he just never complained. He just was
Aw.
always purred.
He was
And
happy.
he was happy to see me.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't realize he was sick or that he was isolated or that he was suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And it was it was one of those eureka moments
Mm-hmm.
where I realized in my belief system that this is how God is. We
Mm-hmm.
can't always see him on the other side of the
Mm-hmm.
door,
Mm-hmm.
but he's always working for us and he will always come. And it was such a healing turnaround moment for me. And I thought, you're not just a kitten I happened to fall in love with. You were a kitten that was meant to be in my life. And so even though the gist of the stories is not to maybe advocate any personal beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
it was such an adventure just getting him well.
Mm-hmm.
And this cat that trusted me, that moved from country and state and everywhere with me, it just had to be told. The story just has to be told.
Oh, that is so sweet. Okay, I was like, whew, I'm going to try to make it without crying. It's such a tender story. And, you know, a lot of people are very dependent on their pets in the sense that they are your best friend. They're there all the time. They give you comfort. They give you happiness, unconditional happiness.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're their own little characters, and you bond with them, and you start to see their little, you know, their personalities coming out. So they are very much there for you just as you are for them. And I can understand the bond that you would create with a little kitten, and just nurturing it back is rewarding in and of itself. So you're watching this frail little
Yes.
creature, and then it's becoming stronger and stronger because you've helped that. So I can imagine the feelings that you're, you know, obviously growing for the little kitty cat. So what was he like when he was, obviously he's watching you, he's dependent and happy on you.
Yeah.
But what was he like when you would interact with him?
So when I took him home the first day, he had quit eating, and he was so infected with his sinuses and everything. And when cats can't smell, they stop eating. And when that happens, they die.
Mm-hmm.
And he was at that point, and they had told me not to expect him to live. And I thought, well, he's got to be hungry. So I put some food out, and he didn't want to eat. And I literally had to take little dabs and put it in his mouth and stroke his throat. And I thought, oh, this will stimulate an appetite. What he really wanted was to be held.
Mm.
And so I just sat down on the floor and wrapped him up and held him. And for an hour, he just sat there and leaned against me. Mm-hmm. And I realized again in that moment that it's more than just survival, even with animals. Mm-hmm. They have this need for community, and they have this need for socialization. And I was so happy to provide that. And it was different than any of the foster kittens I had before that, which were many over the years. Mm-hmm. He wanted more. Mm-hmm. And he invited me, so I accepted.
He found his human, like you said earlier when we were speaking. So it's always interesting. You know, I've adopted before, and that was the last cat I actually adopted. And I remember going to the adoption center many, many times, and I'm like, I'm going to find my cat. I'm going to find my cat. And I'm also a dog person, so I was, you know, flipping the coin. I'm like, this time it's going to be a cat. And just being there, and I'm like, nothing is sticking out to me. There's an immediate bond that you feel, or magnetism when you're picking out a pet, which most people will probably attest to. There's something that just clicks with you. And I remember probably the last time I said, I can't do this anymore, because it's very heartbreaking to see them too. And so I remember being there, and the last time I said, this is the last time I come here, she was sitting on the top of a perch. As big as she was, I don't even know how she got up there, because she was on the very top part, which was very small, and she was very large. And I was like, that's her. She's sitting up there like a little queen cat. That's my cat. And she was very old. They warned me that they're like, she's very old. Right. You need to know that before you adopt her. And I was just smitten with her. And she was just perfect. And so it's just one of those things. You become bonded, and you want to get to know them, and you're like, what are you about? You know? And it's just amazing, because they can't speak, but you have that communication with them.
Yes, they definitely communicate.
Yeah.
They definitely communicate. Well, and you made a good point talking about your kitty being an older cat, that I always wanted kittens.
Mm-hmm.
I love kittens, and I always make the joke, kittens are not cats. That's how cats get you. They start out as kittens.
That's it.
But there are so many older cats
Mm-hmm.
that, for whatever reason, end up going from being somebody's lap cat
Mm-hmm.
to living in this tiny cage. And I always think, wouldn't it be great upon retirement to be able to have space and land to go get these older senior cats and say, you can stay with me. You can sit on my lap. You can have a human all the way until you're no longer with us. You don't have to end it up in a cage. And it's such a deep dream in me to hope that will some way come true.
I
you
hope
know?
it comes true for you too.
Yeah.
It is a sad thought, because it's a reality that we have to deal with in our
Yes.
society. And I know that, not just Denton and around everywhere, it's everywhere. And I know that we are, Denton tends to be a very pet loving city.
Mm-hmm.
We have them all the time. You see them on the square. They're everywhere. They're welcomed even into the places that we go into, on a daily basis here sometimes. Some of our local shops and venues are pet welcomers. So it's an integral part of our society here in Denton. And so we even have little festivals for them and whatnot. So, cats are a little bit different. My cat, she was older, and all she asked for was her space. And when she came to you and she wanted you to love on her. But then after that, she's like, I'm done, just the typical.
Well, she's a senior cat.
Definitely. So,
Right.
so tell me more about Dory's progression as he became healthier.
So I noticed that he began to have more energy to play. And whereas when I first got him, do you remember that old cartoon Build-A-Cat?
Mm-hmm.
His whiskers were all down. And he was thin. His ribs were showing. He's just a terrible looking thing. And within a couple of weeks, at least his face started looking a little bit more like a kitten face. Super, just immediately bonded with me. And I would bring him different toys in and different things. But he had this favorite game. He would jump up on my lap and he would roll over and put his paws like that. And I realized he wanted me to tickle his belly.
Oh.
And I'd tickle his belly and he would just do his head from side to side like it was the greatest thing. And then I'd stop and he'd look at me like,
I want some more.
so I'd tickle his belly. So I invented a song for him, which I'm not a singer. I apologize, audience. But I invented a song with him. Well, Dory is 8 years old, and I sang it every day to him when I would come to see him, take care of him, give him his medicine. And every day, once a day, he demands that I hold him. I put him up on my lap. He turns over. He puts his paws on my chest, and I sing the song. And then he bumps me with his forehead because all these many thousands of days later, he still wants his Dory song. So we played quite a bit. Around 6 or 7 months, he decided no more tickle belly, and we started chasing balloons. So I'd get him Mylar balloons, and he was still in isolation in his own little bathroom. And so that's kind of limited. What can you do, you know? And that was all the big news until he pounced one and popped it, and Kitty just went. It's just like he puffed up like a porcupine. And that was the end of the Mylar balloon play.
Yeah, he goes through his phases.
He was done. And I felt sorry for him, and I thought, maybe you need a nest. You know, I can't hold you. You can't sleep with me at night. So I went and got him this little crate, and I thought he would cuddle in it. And what you would hear was the cat bulldozing this thing just all over the bathroom. And so
he was bored.
He was bored. It was never the nest. It was just a toy to be conquered.
Oh,
and
my
so,
goodness. They are very much like that.
Yes. A lot of personality.
I can imagine. So let's talk about the book, and it is Dory Gets a Forever Family, and obviously it is about Dory, and this is actually based off of Dory's adventure in life and how he came about. So give us a little synopsis of
Okay. Well, I was fortunate enough, or the shelter where I adopted him was fortunate enough to actually know his mother, and his mother's name was Snowflake. That really was her name. And she was able to get adopted, which I think also took him away from being able to nurse her, which also led to some health issues and probably some bereavement on his part. But I was able to get all that back history. So I went ahead and put that in there, how he got stuck in a rainstorm, how he initially got so sick that he followed her out of the nest and got lost. But a kind human citizen was able to see all this. So she called the shelter and said, things aren't looking good at the nest. And so they went ahead and came and got him and got her. Well, so what I did, because pets are such an important part of our lives and we all love our pets so much. And because I'm an adopted person, I thought I really want to kind of tell the story of how Dory felt to get adopted. And I wanted to maybe perhaps for those certain children, that would be adopted, to make sure that that gets touched on, not in an obvious way, just as a part of the reality of what happened. So I have one of my degrees is in child development. So I decided to write it first person through Dory's eyes as his adventure of getting lost, getting sick, getting adopted, trying so hard to get well. And even at the end of this first book, he's not well yet because it took him so long to get well. So many veterinarians, so many specialists. But he did.
Yay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want the story to be told in a way that's relatable to children. And maybe even, how would you say, how they learn about the world.
And just empathizing with someone who's in that circumstance.
Yes. And mammals, they kind of develop in the same way, in a similar way, at different rates. But he disobeyed his mom. He left the nest. That's against the rules. And he got lost and he got sick. It's just part of the narrative, but there's a little bit of a consequence in there. There's a little bit of, I made a decision, it wasn't the best choice, this is what happened. In the end, it all gets good because things do have a way of working out when you're trying really hard. But Dory had to learn some lessons, and even somewhere down the road, not in this book, we adopt another cat. And it does not work out well for that cat initially because he's very jealous and he wants to be the only cat that I love. And he has to learn to share his toys.
And animals are very possessive of their toys.
Yes, they are.
I've literally witnessed animals fighting over toys, and it's just so hilarious and so realistically human as well. The jealousy, I know it's just very real. So
like a child.
Very much so. So I would imagine that children would be able to relate and enjoy the story because it is going to be relatable to them. So obviously it says episode 1 on this first book, and I'll show you guys. I have it here, and she's got some wonderful images in here, or illustrations of Dory's adventure. So I really like that one. That's cute.
Which one is it? Yes.
The original front cover.
Yes.
That little face is so adorable.
I call that, I got adopted and I'm happy about it. And
that's what it feels
like. I know
like.
that sensation because I also am adopted and I know that sensation.
That's awesome.
Great.
So there's a little bit of you in this, not just from a cat perspective, but from a personal note. And that's amazing. So, episode 1, and you're obviously going to plan on episode 2 and etc. And we were talking about this earlier, and because Dory is a cat, you're going to have 9 episodes.
Cats have 9 lives.
Yeah, definitely. So I thought that was really neat. So where can people find your adventures for Dory?
So Barnes & Noble carry them online, and so does Amazon. Dory does have his own website. So you can go to dorythecat.com and learn all about Dory there. You can learn where I'm having book signings. You can get the books from me, and I will sign them for you if you like.
Nice.
So there's a lot of different ways to get Dory. A lot of different ways to get Dory.
Okay, and so what was the website again for the...
dorythecat.com.
Okay. So very simple, dorythecat.com. And this wonderful little t-shirt, which is adorable. I know we have a lot of cat people out here. This is a really cute shirt. I would actually wear it and wear it with my jacket.
Yeah.
It's adorable. So how do you get one of these guys?
So these can be ordered from the website, or they can be purchased at a book signing event. All the events are listed at the website. And because I am a rock climber, I always tell people, if you'll mention the word climbing, I'll give you a $2 discount on the t-shirt, because I want to support my climbing community.
Very much so.
I love the Denton climbers. Hello, Denton climbers. I love you so much.
Very cool. And we do have a Denton climbing community here. So
yes,
very cool.
Very strong community here. Some of the better climbers that I've seen climb in the gyms here.
Well, there you go. They're supporting you. You're supporting them.
Yes.
And this is a really cute t-shirt. So if you happen to want to purchase the t-shirt, make sure you mention climbing, rock climbing, so that you can get those $2 off. I would say that's a great deal. So you guys hook it up with that mention. And your social media, I know you have a Twitter. Do you have an Instagram?
So I have them listed here at the website.
Here we go. So you do have Instagram, and it's at the Dory Stories with an S, Stories. And then your Facebook is obviously the Dory Stories. You can find her on Facebook as well. And like she said before, she is touring and signing events, and they're listed on the website. So how soon do you think we would be expecting episode 2?
That's a great question. So I'm hoping to send the manuscript to the publisher, hopefully, hopefully by end of May, early June. We anticipate having it between probably around Thanksgiving, give or take.
Right before the holidays.
A lot of things can happen.
Yes.
Last year when I sent the first manuscript, they had a hurricane and forced evacuation.
Stuff happens.
Yeah. So things can happen. I mean, they're a business too.
Yeah.
So, but I'm hoping that we'll have it hopefully within the next 6 or 7 months.
Well, hopefully that'll happen, and you're more than welcome to come back and
thank you.
Talk about Dory. And we talked about bringing Dory in the studio, but Dory's not quite happy to travel, so
doesn't travel.
We're gonna try to do either photos or a little stand-in Dory.
I think so. Maybe I can make you like a photographic essay of some of his better pictures.
That would be awesome. I really appreciate you, Ricky, coming and showing us what Dory's all about and telling us the story. It's a very sweet story.
Thank you.
Like, I was very touched by it. So I would advise you guys to get out there and order Dory's story here on her websites mentioned, and get the t-shirt hookup, and wait for episode 2 once you guys get connected with episode 1. Ricky, thank you so much for sharing your story and being here, part of the Denton Vibe with Diva Girl Ellie. And you guys, I want to say a special shout out to my mom. Mom, you are my hero. And after what you went through this week with your surgery, I'm so glad that you are doing so well. We're so blessed to still have you around, being a strong woman that you are. And you are just, I love you, Mom. That's all I have to say about that. And thank you so much for tuning in to the Denton Vibe with Diva Girl Ellie here on Denton Radio. We will see you next week.
Well, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to check out DentonRadio.com for new Denton artists and where they're playing next. While you're surfing the internet, make sure you check out our friends Classic of Denton at ClassicofDenton.com.